Вітаємо вас, дорогі глядачі, на українській телемережі «Контакт». І сьогодні маємо надзвичайно великий привілей вітати українського канадського сенатора, тобто сенатора канадського парламенту Святослава Кутчера. Сенаторе, вітаємо вас на нашій програмі. І, пане сенаторе, вітаємо вас з приводу того, що ви будете так званий Parade Marshal на нашому фестивалі. І тому буде гарно з вами поговорити, але в той сам час хочу, щоб всі наші глядачі бачили і розуміли, що минулого разу, як ми мали розмову з вами, то було по-англійськи, а тим разом по-українськи, бо ви вже за той час мали нагоду вивчити першу вашу мову.
Я трошки вивчив по-українськи тепер, я маю вчителька, вона завжди мені сказала, що я більше мусив розуміти, більше мусив говорити, то я можу трошки говорити по-українськи. То привіт і добрий день, let's go.
Окей, so перше поговоримо трохи про вашу заслугу, що призначено в місяць вересень, the month of September, то Ukrainian Heritage Month в Канаді. В першу чергу дякуємо дуже, що ви таке встановили. А друге, в чому ви вбачаєте, why do you feel there's an importance in that? Чому ви таке зорганізували і встановили, і чому це важливе для вас і має бути важливе для кожного нас, українця в Канаді?
То дякую. That's a very important question. And what it really is about Canada appreciating the contributions that people of Ukrainian descent have made to this country. And it's also people of Ukrainian descent being proud of what they have contributed and will continue to contribute to the making of a better Canada. And what this legislation does, it creates a framework so that Ukrainians and people who are not Ukrainians can come together to celebrate all the really good things that Ukrainians have brought to Canada and will continue to bring to Canada. So it's an official recognition of the contribution of Ukrainians to the culture, to the science, to the politics, to the business, to all those different, the culture, all those different parts of what Canada is.
So, Senator, first of all, we thank you very much for taking this initiative in Parliament to recognize that. And we wanted to thank you, and we thank you again for agreeing to be the Parade Marshal for our Bloor West Village Toronto Festival this year. And I think with your person, I think we can elevate the level of conversation. Up until now, we've had persons of merit always being parade marshals, but this time we may actually, maybe with your help, not just be ceremonial, but maybe help with the issues at hand. And obviously, you've just mentioned the Ukrainian heritage, but you personally have professionally spent a lot of time dedicated to the issue of mental health, specifically for youth. Could you tell us how can we make that, and how relevant is that to our community, and conceivably whether the war is even forcing the issue even more today?
Thank you again for that question. And let me just start by sharing with you what kind of an honor and a privilege it is to be your marshal in this coming festival. It is something I never ever thought that I would ever have an opportunity to do. So thank you for the invitation. The people ask me, what should we do to improve mental health in Ukraine? And I always say to them, stop the war with the Ukrainian victory as soon as possible. That's the one most important thing that we can do to improve mental health for all Ukrainians, but also for all the people who worry about their family and their friends and are desperate to hear about the news from them. If the war is stopped, if when Ukraine wins, then we can really stop the trauma and the difficulties that are created by the war on the mental health of the population. So the number one thing to do is to provide Ukraine with the ammunition, with the guns, with the planes, with the capacity to win this war quickly. That's the first thing. Then when we have to look at two issues, rehabilitation issues and reconstruction issues. And we have to address both of them at the same time. So I will focus on young people. So we have young people who have lived through the horrible traumas of war. We have young people who have lost parents or family members or friends because of the war. We have young people who have been abducted to Russia and are now, some of them are being repatriated, but some of them are still there. So that group of young people has to be helped. So we have a huge need right at this point in time. The challenge that is faced is that in Ukraine, we have not the infrastructure, not the capacity, and not the ability to meet all those needs at this moment. Now, the donor community, the people in Ukraine that are working with children, have been doing a great job. And I just want to congratulate them and acknowledge the great job that they're doing. But there is so much need right now, we have to really up the game. One thing, for example, is I am aware that there is a project being developed, which I hope that the government will fund, that will actually introduce to Ukraine a whole group of youth care workers that can meet the needs of children and their families now and in the future during the reconstruction. So that's the first thing, is to stop this war with a full Ukrainian victory. And then we move to continuing the rehabilitation and the reconstruction. On the reconstruction side, we have to help Ukraine build the sustainable infrastructure so that it can train the human resources, so it can meet the needs of the population now and into the future. And that means working with government, but it means working with non-government organizations, and it means working with educational institutions like universities and colleges to build the capacity so that Ukraine can take over and do what it needs to do with its own people, with its own time. So those are the important issues.
Now, how about Senator? What about the here and now, and what about here in Canada? Do you feel there's a need in Canada here for us to be doing something, not when win wins, but today? What can be done or should be done, if at all necessary, in the first place?
Yeah, excellent question. So there are a couple of things. First is that we need to keep pressuring our government, and through them, members of NATO and the European Union and all like-minded countries in the world, to move as quickly as possible to end this war with a Ukrainian victory. So members of the Ukrainian diaspora, we have access, you have access to your elected officials, your members of parliament. You have access to your senators. And you need to speak loudly and forcefully and clearly. Now, we are hearing some good things. The Ukrainian Canadian Congress is doing some excellent work. CUF is doing some excellent work. But more Ukrainians who live in Canada, who are part of the diaspora community, have to advocate really strongly to do whatever we can to persuade our allies to end this war quickly. The second thing is that supporting organizations that are providing funding to Ukraine is so important, because those organizations can work to do the rehabilitation work that is so needed right now. So supporting those organizations with fundings. For example, I'm aware of one organization working with young people called Save Ukraine, and that organization is doing fantastic work. There are other organizations that are doing fantastic work. The KUF is doing some wonderful support of organizations in Ukraine. So those are the kinds of things we could talk with our wallets. And that's really important. Talking with our wallets is so important. And then the third thing that's really important is that many of us have connections in Ukraine. I have family members in Kyiv. I have family members in Lviv. I have family members in Ternopil. So it's important for us to keep those communications, to talk with them, to email with them, to Skype, like we're doing today, with them as often as possible, to make them feel and to promote that they're not alone, to promote the necessity of those human connections, to keep those connections as strong as possible. So those are the things that we can do now.
Okay, well, Senator Stanley, thank you very much for being with us. We thank you for your straightforward type of advice, but also like very, very, very necessary. We hope to see you on the screen here still even before our festival arrives, but for everybody, this was a very interesting conversation and advice from Senator Stanley Kutcher from the Senate of Canada, giving us advice on mental health and wellness, and also upon the very valuable need to support and promote Ukrainian heritage in Canada. Senator, thank you very much, and na zdоров'я, до побачення.
До побачення і дуже дякую.